Right, good afternoon everyone. Thank you very much for attending on what is a very, very important day for the Isle of Man, and in particular one of the most important assessments, I think it's fair to say, that's ever been undertaken within a section or department of government. And what we're doing today is presenting to you, the media and the public of the Isle of Man, what is known as the CI65 report, which is a major professional assessment undertaking of the Isle of Man's National Insurance Fund, the benefit system and the administration system behind those benefits as well. It's also done an actuarial assessment of the situation with the Manx National Insurance Fund. The background's quite simple. Over time, it's become increasingly obvious to the government and others that the sustainability of the National Insurance Fund has come under question. Recent GAD reports have shown that the fund would actually extinguish itself by 2057. The CI65 report has actually taken that assessment a stage further and says that the fund will actually extinguish somewhere around 2047, several years sooner than we anticipated. Also, you will have noted from recent press releases and commentary in the Manx Parliament that in fact the last 2 years, or the first 2 years, that the National Insurance Fund has not been sustainable and has had to be topped up from income from our investment reserve for the fund. That presents us with a very serious challenge, and I have to make it clear that this is not due to credit crunch or the VAT agreement or any monetary situation. What is actually happening is that the amount of folk who are attaining 65 or retirement age are growing, and it is set to significantly grow over the next 30 years by another 93% on top of that. Benefit payments and pensions and so on is a pay-as-you-go situation, so what people are putting in today is paying out for basically the pensions and so on benefits. And the number of people in work is basically been outstripped by the number of people who are reaching the retirement age. So the fund is becoming unsustainable for the future, and it's now at a point, a critical mass basically, because, as I say, we're having to use investment returns to top up the main fund to try and keep pace with paying out the benefits. The total benefit budget for 2014-15 is somewhere in the region of £269 million. To give you an idea of the scale of the social security operation, if you like, it's nearly half the Isle of Man budget. So it's a very significant issue. CI65 have identified this situation, and they have used terminology such as the social security system is broken. They've identified that there is a unique Isle of Man situation here that is different to the UK, and hence we've got a different set of figures and a different way of moving forward. The good news is, if it can be classed as that, is that the consultants have identified a pragmatic way forward for the island and for government to manage their way through and out of this situation, so that in future years, if the recommendations, or some of them, were taken up or revamped, we can actually aim for a sustainable NI fund for the future. And in doing that, they've identified a plethora of recommendations that would help to achieve that. Some are directly involved with the National Insurance Fund. which will have a direct impact on that and help to produce the sustainability that we critically need and ensure the future for our children and grandchildren. But also there's side issues that they've identified as well, looking at the Isle of Man benefit system, the complicated nature of how benefits are paid, how it's all structured, the complicated sets of rules, and the administration involved in all of that behind the scenes. So what they have basically said as recommendations, and I have to stress that these are recommendations at the minute which we've issued. You've got your press pack, so you'll have the information. They've identified a way forward by taking some specific measures which include the possibility of raising the retirement age more than the UK. It includes things like paying in for a 45-year period as opposed to the 30-year period now. It includes increasing national insurance contributions and a substantial tranche of other recommendations and side recommendations as well to do with simplifying out the social security and the administration. They make a recommendation to call for a single Manx pension. They make a recommendation that looks at a Manx benefit, and they say that in order to achieve many of these recommendations, it would mean that we would have to talk to the United Kingdom government in relation to our reciprocal agreement to see what was a pragmatic and best way forward and what would be the most mutually agreeable way forward for both jurisdictions in relation to achieving our own positive ends with regards to these recommendations, or however we set the way forward. Now, I have to stress these are recommendations. Treasury have looked at them and they will be going to the Council of Ministers, and certainly they will see them. They will be going out to public consultation, and then there will obviously have to be a Tynwald debate on however it feeds back into Tynwald, and we see a way forward. That's to make the whole thing transparent and open for public debate, and indeed there may well be further ideas or changes put forward or mooted, and members will have a chance in Tynwald then to debate the whole subject and in some detail as we go forward. That's the perceived plan as of now anyway. It's a huge amount of information to publish, an incredible amount of detail. The consultants have been very professional throughout it in what they've done. They've been diligent. They've nitpicked down to the finest nut and bolt of the system, if you like, and all credit to them there. I have to also say that if some of the recommendations were in the future to be adopted, then there are transitional protection periods put in place or as a recommendation, and certainly if everything came in a few months' time, current pensioners, most of them wouldn't see any effect. They would be protected. That's the main message that we want to give out. And then following forward from that, then folk on the Manx pension supplement would be on a protected transitional period of over 20 years, I think it is. That's a sort of a flavour and background of what the report basically identifies and points to as a way forward. Now, at this point in time, nothing's been agreed yet. We're being totally upfront with the public of the Isle of Man, saying, here's the assessment, and this is what the consultants have said is a way forward. Now, we need to hear views from the public, ideas, and then government ultimately, as a responsible government, will have to move some or all of the recommendations in some sort of form or other to try and move us forward on a positive foundation. There is no option to do nothing unless we want to see the collapse of the National Insurance Fund. It is that serious, ladies and gentlemen. and it needs to be treated with that seriousness as we go forward.